Outgoing Senior Minister Chee says finely tuned coordination across ministries remains key as Singapore deals with cross-cutting issues such as climate change and national security. In a wide-ranging interview ahead of his retirement, the coordinating Minister for National Security also reflected on his 3 decades in politics. Jeraldine Yap with more.
A final media huddle as outgoing Senior Minister Chee looks back on his 53-year career in public service. In particular, he highlighted his achievements at the Education Ministry from 1997 to 2003.
We completely revamped the teachers' career schemes. Salaries was one thing, but also the careers. To have the teaching track, the leadership track, and the specialist track, so that we were able to develop teachers much more fully and holistically. And also, in the course of that, I think we managed to raise the status of teachers in society. The other one I'm really very happy with is ITE. ITE was the idea of Dr. Teng Soon to change from a VITB, which was really a secondary vocational school, to a post-secondary institute for technical education. But the structure of each of the individual centers was still like a secondary vocational school. It was about 1,500 students, and there were 10 to a dozen centers all over Singapore. So we decided that we could actually build ITE colleges and bring a different approach to ITE education to the students. And so every time I go to IT Central or East or West, I feel a great sense of joy, and to see the students actually have the type of facilities that they have, and it gives them a sense of hope for the future.
With your vast experience across the different ministries, how do you think that has shaped your perspective or your approach towards governance and leadership?
Some of it comes not just from the ministries, but from my own experience previously in the Navy. It was a very collegial type of organization. And so, people have this idea that if you come from the armed forces, you just tell people what to do and things get done. It doesn't work that way in our armed forces, because we have a National Service Armed Forces and ORNS, Reservist Armed Forces. You can't just tell people what to do and they will do it. You actually have to work with them, get them on board. My approach is always to try and understand the situation, listen to people, what they have to say, and go right down to the end, the last person who's delivering the service. Understand what he's doing. When I was in MHA, for example, I took a great deal of interest in what kind of shoes the officers wear. These are very basic but important things, and they're comfortable because they spend a lot of time on their feet. It's important to the person on the ground because it helps him to get the job done better. So you've got to understand some of the issues that he faces. And if you can help him to do the job better, he will do the job better.
Was this the same approach that you took as well when you were tasked to handle sensitive issues over the years, whether it was Oxley Road or even the most recent incident of the disclosure of NRIC numbers by BizFile?
Well, that's a totally different set of issues. You're talking about how you lead an organization versus how you deal with certain of these other issues. Well, the other types of issues, from time to time, the PM had asked me, PM Sian Lung and then PM Lawrence asked me to deal with some of these issues because he felt that I would bring a certain objective eye to it, and that I would deal with it firmly but fairly. One of the most important things in government is integrity and trust that the government is doing the correct thing. And so if something goes wrong, you must deal with it.
From your own experience as Coordinating Minister for National Security, what do you think is the relevance of this Coordinating Minister role moving forward? And do you think the 4G team is equipped to take on a role like this?
There's always coordination required across ministries, and in some cases more so than others. because there are no issues which are just single issue which dealt with by a single ministry. They are always quite cross-cutting. So one of the things I always advocated was a stronger, a better coordinating function in the Prime Minister's office. And so we have the PMO Strat Group. And that brings together some of the key cross-cutting issues that we have to deal with, like climate, population, these to name a few. But then we also have national security, so we have a National Security Secretariat. And these work on these issues in a more holistic way and try to help the individual ministries and agencies do their job better. So you do need this function. How it's to be carried out, it can take on different forms in different times, depending on the urgency of each of these issues, and also depending on the people that you have.
As you step down after 5 decades in public service, what is one key lesson that you've taken away for yourself and that you will share with this new team of leaders?
Unity is one of the key things. Working together, that's key. And this is one of the characteristics that we have in Singapore. Working together as a cabinet, working together as a parliamentary team, working together as a civil service, working together as a country. And this is a key and core strength that we have, which is an advantage of being small. And it's a core and key strength that we have, which allows us to face the world with confidence. I mean, we were quarreling and fighting with each other all the time. Where do we have energy to actually improve the lives of people? And how do we face the world? So, well, COVID-19 was a very interesting example. And we actually pooled on what I would describe as 3 sets of reserves. We think of our financial reserves. We were able to support Singaporeans, companies, small businesses, gig workers, get through this very, very critical period. The other set of reserves that we have actually lies in our organizational capacity. So when we had to deal with COVID, we drew on companies, we drew on civil society, we drew on the public service. But the other set of reserves that we drew on was really our social reserves, our sense of community. So people look after each other. These are the reserves that we've built up over the years. And these are things which we should continue to strengthen and not rubbish them or diminish them.